Less than 2 weeks ago, the Linux kernel removed a large collection of key maintainers from the Linux kernel project because those key maintainers are from Russia. This obviously caused a lot of chaos, has a lot of implications, and it continues to be a point of discussion to the point where the Linux kernel mailing list and the Linux kernel is now banning individual contributors, including longtime contributors who are not Russian, who protest the removal of the Russian programmers. I've got one example here I'm going to show you in just a moment. And to top all of this off, the Linux Foundation itself still, almost 2 weeks later, has not made an official clear statement about why all this is happening, leaving many within the Linux kernel to simply share the Lunduke Journal videos in order to try and make sense of it all. That's right. The only clear statement that's been made to date, as far as anyone on the Linux kernel is concerned, is the videos from the Lunduke Journal, because the Linux Foundation just is not saying anything. It would be very simple for them to come out and talk about the executive order from Joe Biden and how that puts specific sanctions on Russia that directly impact GPL software. It would be very easy for them to do that, but they've chosen not to. Why? I don't know. I don't know. They legally can say why they've banned those people, right? They can say why those people are those Russians are no longer allowed to contribute to and work with the Linux kernel. They can say that, but they've chosen not to, and that's extremely peculiar. Let's dive into this real quick here. So the initial statement came out from Greg Kroll-Hartman that the Russians were being removed. It was very, very confusing. It didn't actually mention Russia. It didn't mention the reasons for it. It just said various compliance requirements were causing them to remove entries. And by entries, they meant people listed as maintainers of core components of the Linux kernel. What made all of this get really whipped up into a frenzy, though, was the only real statement that came out of the Linux Foundation was from Linus himself. So when Linus Torvalds, the creator of Linux, went out there and said, there's a whole lot of Russian trolls out and about. It's entirely clear why this change was done, and it's not getting reverted, so the Russians are not coming back. And using blah, 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 the Russian troll factories. If you haven't heard of Russian sanctions yet, you should try to read the news someday. And by news, I don't mean Russian state-sponsored spam. As to sending me a revert patch, please use whatever mush you call brains. I'm finished. Do you think I'd be supporting Russian? Apparently, it's not just lack of real news, it's lack of history knowledge, too. And basically, he went on a rampage, right? And just started just attacking everybody. Now, this resulted in a whole lot of protest statements, including people saying that they were going to leave the Linux kernel, and they did. I'm a Russian troll, so remove myself from the maintainers list. That was from Alexander Mazin. Hi, everybody. My name is Alexander Peznev. I live in Russia, Moscow. I'm probably one of these Russian trolls mentioned by Linus in his message a couple days ago. On and on and on. I was shocked by the way senior maintainers handled that patch when people put it under my radar. Then I scroll down and I see all these familiar names, including this person and you. And this is certainly not the way things should have been done. Even if legal requirements necessitate the action, there are better ways to handle it. Instead, the most absurd and shameful option have been chosen. This is all deeply disappointing to me, on and on and on. Now, there's a huge collection. If you look through the Linux kernel mailing list and elsewhere, you'll find just example after example of people disappointed in the way that it was mentioned, disappointed in Linus's statement, disappointed that it was done at all, protest patches submitted where individuals submitted changes to the Linux kernel maintainers file, which is what was modified to remove the Russian programmers, to remove programmers from other countries that people didn't like or add them back or that sort of thing. And one of those was from a programmer, a longtime programmer named Enrico Wiegelt. And I'm just going to read a little bit of his statement here, and then I'm going to scroll down through his his proposed patch. He actually submitted a couple of these, and show you exactly what he put in here. Since the Linux project is now driven politically instead of by technical excellence, it's now time to remove some entries due to various and obvious moral requirements. And then he goes on to list, here in this, he's removing everyone that he believes is from a country or is associated with any organization that is in a country that has committed wars that he considered to be wars of aggression, that has used weapons of mass destruction, that has nuclear weapons, like everything, right? And the result is, oh my gosh, just everybody, right? I don't know if it is absolutely everybody, but if you scroll down it is just page after page after page of removed individuals from the Linux kernel. I mean, you could keep scrolling for days. It was a protest patch, right? Like there was clearly that was never going to get accepted into the kernel. It was a protest patch to say, hey, maybe then we should just go ahead and get rid of everybody. That was clearly the point that Enrico was trying to make. Then he submits another just message to the Linux kernel mailing list. That message got deleted. So we don't know what it said in full. If you go and check it out on the Linux kernel mailing list, it simply says message ID not found. And that's not surprising. There's several messages that have been deleted from the Linux kernel mailing list around all of this chaos. Now, we know a little bit about what it said because Theodore So, a longtime Linux kernel contributor, replied to Enrico's message that got deleted and quoted one sentence of it. That sentence said, quote, "Okay, great. I'm fully on your side. Let's sanction all countries that like to wage wars of aggression against other countries and kick out all maintainers from there." That end quote. So that was what Enrico posted, which got deleted. Enrico was then banned from the Linux kernel. He can no longer even just post anything to any Linux kernel related mailing list. So I reached out to Enrico because this seemed peculiar and had questions. I said, hey, Enrico, I've gotten word about your banning on the Linux kernel mailing list and would like to learn more about what happened for an article or a show or something. He replied, and I'm going to read his whole reply to you now. "Sounds great. I'll try to give a quick recap." All right, so he gives me a little quick recap. 2 weeks ago, Greg posted a patch depriving several honored Russian maintainers of their maintainer status. It just silently removes them without any clear explanation, nor adding them to the credits file, which is peculiar. He then linked to it. I showed you that just a moment ago. As a heated discussions arose, Linus reinforced that by ranting against all his critics as being Russian trolls. I've been amongst the critics and also expressing my deep disappointment that I've lost all trust in both of them. I'm also a maintainer for many years now and once joined the Linux community for its openness and focus on technical excellence. All of that seems to be gone now. At some point last week, all my mails to @kernel.org from my whole domain started being hard rejected as alleged spam. Here's some piece of evidence. And then he provides links to some auto responses. Basically, no matter what kernel.org email account or mailing list he sent to, it gets rejected as spam. This happens with all sender addresses from my domain to all recipients at the kernel.org mailing lists, as well as individuals. By switching to a backup account on some large free mail provider and resending several mails from there, I can confirm it's not the actual content, but my domain, which is blocked. I asked him if he had any idea of why exactly he was banned. He said, quote, "I can only assume it's because I've criticized His Holiness and told him that he betrayed us all and endangers not just Linux, but free and open source software and such." It's not the first time Enrico refers to Linus Torvalds as His Holiness in the context of all of this. I don't know about previously, but in the context of all of this, he's done that a few times now. And then I asked, did they make any statement to him about it at all? And he said flat out, no. I got some replies by other people, for example, Theodore So, but nothing that can be interpreted as any kind of warning, etc. Note that I'm not some random guy. I'm an officially listed maintainer. Frankly, I expect being silently delisted too. Have fun, Enrico. Huh. So now what we have going on right now is kind of just total chaos happening within the Linux kernel project, because not only has a large number of programmers been kicked out because of their country of origin, and then significant portions of the Linux kernel project, drivers and their various modules and stuff are now orphaned, meaning they have no experienced in that area developer now maintaining them, which is a problem all by itself. But several other developers, Russian, not Russians, are now leaving the project because in protest over it, with other developers being banned from even communicating with the project, even though they're years-long listed maintainers, because they protested how this was messaged, whether it was done at all, etc. Wherever you kind of fall on this, it's just total chaos. And it just seems to be ramping up. What's really nutty to me, let me go forward a little bit here, is that there have been no statement in all of this as significant badness, for lack of a better word, has been happening within the Linux kernel right now. There's been no statement to calm it down from the Linux Foundation. It would seem to me that in a situation like this, where people are leaving in protest, where people are being banned and kicked out, where people are being banned for their country of origin and many other things, then the only real responsibility of the Linux Foundation at that point, beyond just legal compliance, is to keep things operating smoothly, right? To keep everyone calm, keep everyone focused on the job and working. The Linux Foundation is, at last I checked, what is it, $250 million a year business? Is it more than that now? Something like that. I should know. I've done in-depth dives on this, but it's escaping me at the moment. But it's a ton of money. Hundreds of millions of dollars a year come into the Linux Foundation. And this is a cash cow for them. To have this all devolve into chaos would seem to be just not a smart move. And yet they've made no real declaration about what's happening and why people should calm down. And it's left this information vacuum, even on the Linux kernel mailing list. If you go to the Linux kernel mailing list at kernel.org, in fact, you'll find people just regularly posting links to like the Lunduke Journal. There's a YouTube link here. There's another one, some lame ducks executive order 14071, which is the US thing, contrary to Linus's explanation. And then he links to a YouTube video. That YouTube video is one of the videos from the Lunduke Journal explaining the Executive Order 14071. Wish the UX folks recalled Executive Order and then supplied another Executive Order instead of digging their own graves as ordered by the most real Nazis on this planet. People are clearly upset and trying to fill in the information gap with statements from the Lunduke Journal. Now, the problem with that is the Lunduke Journal is trying our best to, I'm trying my best to supply the information with good analysis around all of this, but that doesn't take the place of an actual official statement from the Linux Foundation. The Linux Foundation is being totally quiet and dare I say negligent here. They need to get out in front of this and make a statement, a couple sentence long statement. Executive 14071, signed by President Biden, a little over, was it 2.5 years ago, necessitated specific sanctions against Russia, wherein GPL software is impacted because of a 2017 federal court ruling. It's very, very simple. Like, I mean, people may not like it, right? People may object to the laws regarding GPL software and the like. They may object to President Biden's actions. They may object to the exact wording of that executive order. They may object to Russia or Ukraine or whatever. There's a lot that people could object to here. But if the Linux Foundation doesn't make any sort of statement, then you've got a knowledge vacuum. You've got a void. And it's just getting filled right now, predominantly with statements from the Lunduke Journal. And as smart as I think I am, I'm not inside the Linux Foundation with direct access to their meeting notes to where they can say definitively, this was our exact thinking when we made this decision. All I can say is through an examination of the law and the few little tidbits that have been said publicly, this appears to be what's happening. But yet people are trying to fill that knowledge vacuum on the Linux kernel mailing list by just posting links to the Lunduke Journal. I just want to say this flat out. If you're sharing around links to the Lunduke Journal, of course, you're more than welcome to share the YouTube links. That's fine. But if you go to lunduke.com, you're going to find there's a lot of other better ways to listen to and watch the Lunduke Journal, such as via Locals, which has absolutely no ads. So you don't have to watch any ads if you share a Locals video. There's also no ads on the audio podcast. But I mean, if you want to share the YouTube video, I guess that's fine too. All right. Holy heavens, craziness. And I expect this craziness to continue because over the next month and 2 weeks, we're going to see more GPL projects impacted by all of this because of that Executive Order 14071. It's by necessity, it's by law. And so the Linux Foundation and the Linux kernel is sort of setting the tone for what's about to happen. But we're going to have the GNOME Foundation is going to be impacted by this. Everything at the Software Freedom Conservancy, which includes applications like Inkscape and many others, are going to be impacted by this. A lot of GPL and non-GPL software are going to be impacted by this. And there's really no way around it. And it will be interesting to see how the various projects handle it outside of Linux and which ones just try and ignore it. And then what happens then? It's going to be a crazy time in the world of free and open source software. Again, go to lunduke.com. Lots of ways to listen to the Linux Journal, the Lunduke Journal. Freudian slip there. Not a Freudian, just a slip. It's just a slip there. Go to lunduke.com for the Lunduke Journal. And there's audio podcast links, lots of different ways to listen to the audio podcast, lots of different ways, Rumble and X and Locals and YouTube to watch the videos, links to where you can read the articles, all of it's there, ways that you can support the Lunduke Journal and keep this sort of reporting going completely free from all influence of big tech. Big tech cannot tell me what to say or what to report on or how to talk about it in any way, shape, or form. They can't even try. I mean, good luck. Good luck. So if you want to support us, go to lunduke.com. There's links all over there. It'll take you around and it's just absolutely fantastic. So thank you to everyone who already subscribes and supports the work of the Lunduke Journal. Couldn't do it without you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.